I'm a parent myself, so I thought I'll just use some parent language today. So my three messages for you today are: mind your manners, mind your language, and mind your head. I'll explain in a minute, but I think we've had three fantastic presentations, and essentially what they had in common was they were saying, look, in 2015 a number of really important decisions are going to be made. There's an awful lot of people trying to influence these decisions, and we need to be part of this as ordinary people in Ireland as well. And I think that's the core message from this morning. I'd like to add to that obviously these goals that are going to be agreed in September, that's actually the beginning, because then they will need to be applied. And a country like Ireland and all of the other members of the United Nations will need to develop action plans of how they will translate the commitments and the statements and the goals and the targets to reality of life here. So I guess the message is, look, we do need to get involved in the decisions up until basically December, but after that is when the real work starts in terms of translating global issues to policies and decisions here in Ireland. So I don't know if you're like me, but I find when we talk about these big issues and big challenges, I find it a bit overwhelming, and I think some speakers actually use that. It is, and it's a bit disempowering. It's like, how can little me have any influence on these huge processes with lots of smart people being involved? And I think that's why we in Dochas, we're coordinating the Irish program for the European Year for Development. And we've chosen to go back to something to try and fight that feeling of powerlessness and being overwhelmed. And we said, well, we can all be change makers. We can all make a difference in this area. And we found our inspiration through the words of President Michael D. Higgins, who, when he was elected, essentially said to us, look, the challenge that is lying ahead of us now is to live ethically as people, as Irish citizens in the 21st century. And that's what I think this year is all about. It's about defining what it means to live ethically. So when I say mind your manners, what it means is we are global citizens. The way we act, whether we know it or not, impacts on other people. When I say mind your head is, make sure you learn about how your behavior impacts and how the choices you make. And some of the speakers have already outlined some of the choices that we make. But we actually, every day of the week, when we're having breakfast, we're making choices because we've bought certain ingredients. Where did these ingredients come from? We are already, by the time you've had your breakfast, you've already contributed to climate change. When you got dressed, you put on clothes that you bought somewhere. But more importantly, they were made by somebody. Do you know where they were made? So, it's about learning these things. So mind your manners is making sure that you, as a global citizen, make the right decisions as a consumer, as a voter, as an activist, and as a person. This weekend, for instance, is Global Divestment Day. So we're all being asked to look at where our investments are actually going. Now, most of you won't have investments. Most of you won't have pension plans. But it might be an idea this weekend to ask your parents to write to their pension fund to just ask them a simple question. The money that I put in my pension fund, where was it invested? Is it invested in the oil industry? Is it invested in the arms industry? Is it invested in the tobacco industry? Where does that money go? Not to be annoying, just to ask for clarification. And maybe if you get the clarification and you get the answer that you don't like, then maybe take step 2, and that is reinvest. Invest that money in a fund that actually promotes solutions for the future. That's the important date, 13th of February. In April, similarly, you're being asked as consumers to have a think about what you're wearing. I forget the exact date, but it's basically it's a global action day asking where were my clothes, or who made my clothes. And similarly, it's about highlighting that actually, yeah, we have made choices, but in most cases unconsciously, but we are global citizens, and we have, by buying these clothes, we have impacted either positively or negatively on other people. So buy ethically is the main recommendation, I guess, or main suggestion that I have for you around minding your manners as a global citizen. Minding your language. I think some of the speakers have talked about that as well. It's about challenging some of the concepts that people use. More and more, you hear people saying, well, that overseas aid and global solidarity is a matter of charity. So why don't you make a commitment that the next time somebody says something like that this is a charity, that you say, no, actually, I won't let that stand there. I won't let it sit there or hang in the air. I'm going to actually challenge this. This is not about charity. This is about our common future as a species, as people on this planet. And it's about our common planet. It's also about challenging language about us and them, that somehow the problems of the world are all over there, out there, and it has actually nothing to do with us here. It's also around language of charity begins at home. It's a slogan that is incredibly popular. Most people completely misrepresent what that means. Charity begins at home never meant it therefore only has to end at home. What it meant is that we have to teach our children charitable values. And again, then the challenge is, well, what does charitable values mean? How do you interpret that in real life? So mind your manners, mind your language, and then mind your head. Get involved. It's fantastic to see you all here. Getting input, but more importantly, also discussing with your peers all day. I think that's exactly the sort of stuff that we need to see a lot of. And that's the sort of stuff that the European year is designed to encourage. So have a look. There's plenty of resources. Mark, I gave you a few. We have some on the Facebook and the Twitter pages for the European Year of Development. NYCI and the organizations that are members of NYCI have loads of resources about these issues. And I guess we all have an obligation to just read up on it. So to mind our head as well, to really fill it with as much knowledge as we can. So I guess you can have your coffee shortly, but really if you can, work with us this year to really make sure that everybody in this country knows how important 2015 is and the important choices that we can make on a daily basis to try and live ethically during this year of the European Year for Development. Thank you very much.